Walmart employees, what's the worst thing you've seen? Story 1. Not me, but my ex worked in the clothing department several years ago. One day, a lady was walking around with her small child who had boogers coming out of his nose. The mom then took her kid, put her mouth over the kid's nose, sucked out his boogers, and spat it on the floor. It was one of the grossest things I've ever heard of. Story 2. I'm not a Walmart employee, but a Target team member. One day, I found a trail of diarrhea in the cosmetics section and leading to the restroom. Other guests were just walking through and running it over with their carts, making the trail even bigger. It was a great day. Story 3. So I used to stock the craft section overnight, and I'm kind of an awkward person, so no human contact was great for me. One night, an old guy on a scooter insisted upon sitting in my aisle for hours, just staring at the needles. I stocked everything I could, but finally, I needed him to move. And honestly, I was a little creeped out at this point. I mentioned it to my manager on the way to lunch. After lunch, he was gone. It turns out he had died there like 5 hours ago. Story 4. I had a customer in a motorized scooter, his personal one, not store provided, come up to me at the sporting good desk and ask me where the cans of compressed air were. I walked him over to some and he thanked me, grabbed a can off the shelf, and proceeded to start huffing it right in front of me. Story 5. My time to shine. My first job out of high school was in 2009, when I moved cross-country to be with my girlfriend. I ended up working as a janitor overnight at a Walmart in the worst part of town in Tulsa, Admiral or Memorial for any locals. This place had everything under lock due to high theft and a few deaths on the premises, which led workers to nickname it Kmart. One night, a guy was in the sporting goods area and wanted to buy something. He took his wallet out and set it on the counter for a second, and the thief walked up and grabbed it, then ran off. The victim proceeded to grab a golf club, chase the thief down. Everyone in the store flipped out, and a bunch of people were calling others to view it in the CCTV room. My manager waved me down and asked me to clean up the aisle so the store would look nice for the morning. You know, the crime scene. I clocked out for lunch and quit the next day. Story 6. I've only been working at Walmart for 2 weeks, and I've already had 3 people lose their temper with me. One woman slammed her cart into someone else's cart because she couldn't buy alcohol with an expired ID. And one guy tried to walk away with a whole cart of groceries, but a different customer walked after him and literally dragged him back inside. And this was all in just 2 weeks. Story 7. I worked at Walmart about 20 years ago, managing the photo lab before digital took over. My department was right next to the electronics department, and I was chatting with the manager of that department when, all of a sudden, we heard a woman yell, "Here he comes!" We then saw a middle-aged woman frantically scuttling down the aisle, holding her shorts near the back. She ran to the restroom, leaving a trail of liquid spit behind her. It looked like when a dog is sick and you're trying to get them out the door before they make a mess all over your carpet, and they keep stopping to spit every few seconds. An employee went in with a pair of pants off the shelf to help out. The woman put them on and made a beeline toward the exit without paying for them, leaving her soiled shorts in the stall on the floor. Story 8. It's kind of sad to bring it up, so I don't want to make fun of the guy, but it was 4 a.m. when a man dressed in a suit and fedora came in. He had no face. I concluded that some form of cancer had eaten it away, leaving only his eyes and a massive cancerous hole. He gurgled, and we had to have him write down what he needed. It was sad, but it scared the absolute crap out of me, and I never forgot it. Story 9. Not an employee, but a very frequent Walmart shopper. All the Walmarts around me are pretty nice, and I have never seen anything nasty going on. However, there was an incident once that still stick with me to this day. When I was younger, my mom had to grab medicine at Walmart in the middle of a storm. It wasn't a bad storm or anything. It was just very rainy with some thunder, but it was supposed to continue for several days. So of course, the store was packed. So we were in line at the in-store pharmacy, and there was a man who was clearly mentally disabled, with a helper at the front of the line. The man between us and them was this dude who, in my young mind, must have been a lawyer. He did not fit the stereotypical Walmart look at all, wearing an expensive-looking suit, perfectly gelled hair, and literally carrying a briefcase. He looked annoyed that he was there at all. He intensely reminded me of Patrick Bateman, with just an air of disinterest and arrogance, and was brushing his coat off every time anyone walked too close to him. Everything was fine, and the guy and his helper at the front of the line got their prescriptions and started to turn around. Just as they did, there was a huge thunderclap, and suddenly the power went out in the store. It was not pitch black, but it was dark as hell, and immediately there was commotion in the line. I looked up just in time to witness the disabled man punch the lawyer dude square in the face. The lights flickered and came back on. The lawyer man was standing there, holding his bloody nose, looking like he was ready to murder someone. The disabled guy was freaking out, and the helper was profusely apologizing and trying to help the lawyer guy. The lawyer guy waved him off with a glare, walked to the front, calmly said his name and information, and threw down some money. The pharmacist handed him the prescription, which he snatched away wordlessly and turned away, brushing past me holding his nose, leaving a trail of blood on the linoleum floor. I don't know why, but the entire thing felt so surreal that I still remember it as if it just happened. It was the wildest thing I've ever seen in Walmart. Story 10. I worked at Walmart for all my teenage years, and there was so much poop where it shouldn't be. That was the most disgusting. The worst would have been when some thieves attempted to run out the door, followed closely by loss prevention, turned around and sprayed them with mace, which then wafted into the store. A few seniors had to be taken to the hospital for respiratory issues. Everyone working in the store spent all day coughing as the mace lingered in the air because, heaven forbid, they shut the store down and thought of anyone else's health. Story 11. I watched a high schooler out of his mind trip over his own feet and slam through a middle aisle display of those egg crate file holders. Those suckers went everywhere. Also, an old woman tracked diarrhea through the store, trying to find the bathroom because she shit herself. Story 12. Worst ever. Some people signed up for an oil change, then threw one of those household bug bomb foggers into their car while they waited. When the technician went out to pull the car in, it was full of white smoke from the insecticide, and the interior was covered in thousands of roaches all trying to escape the fog. We told him to leave. Worse this week, guy signs up for an oil change and the technicians find 2 live cats under the hood of the minivan. The owner came out to deal with it, saying they were his. Story 13. Other than the people freaking out and throwing things, and one junkie who continuously stole cans of compressed air for dusting computers to do whippets in the handicapped bathroom, I still don't know how that didn't kill him. Story 14. I was an overnight manager at the time. The store is located in the C area of a major city and is a 24-hour store. At around 2 a.m., the overnight loss prevention associate had just caught a guy shoplifting on the cameras, and I had been called up to help him. Things go smoothly. The guy had stolen less than $50 worth of stuff and complied, so it went pretty easy. After letting the shoplifter go, the loss prevention associate had some paperwork to do, so I jumped on the cameras to see what was going on in the store. I soon found a shady-looking individual lurking around the electronics department. He was clearly making sure no one was in the vicinity watching him. He snuck into an aisle and grabbed an all-in-one monitor, desktop combo wrapped in spider wrap. I still don't know why a $1,000+ computer wasn't locked behind a cage. He quickly took it to a different aisle, easily worked the spider wrap off the box, took the computer out, and shoved it in his sweatpants. Slinking over into the clothing racks and apparel, he hid the computer in some pants and snuck around for the next 15 to 30 minutes, trying to watch the employees up front by the registers. At this time of night, only our cigarette aisle is open. All of a sudden, while watching a blonde lady in her only open register line crouched behind a rack of shirts, he pulled out his and started wanking it, and he wiped himself clean in a shirt that was hanging in front of him. At this point, we knew we didn't want to deal with him at all, so we called the cops. Well, as soon as he finished cleaning off, he headed back to where he hid the computer, put it back in his pants, and started to head our way. We realized he was going to get to us before the cops, so as soon as he passed our last point of sale, we headed out of the monitoring room and confronted him. It is here that I should mention that we're supposed to be a hands-off store, as in if we confront a shoplifter, we're supposed to stop them with words. But at this location in the middle of the night, everybody's a runner. Obviously, this guy decides to run. We tackle him and pin him to the ground. Luckily, soon after, the police showed up, and we let them handle it from there. Story 15. I'm not an employee, but I felt really bad for one. My brother was at Walmart with my friend and me. We were looking through pet stuff, and there was an aisle with plungers at the end. Being the 13-year-old he was, my brother could not resist the temptation of picking one up and sticking it to the floor. We laugh a little. After he does this, he goes to put it back, and the whole rack falls down. He's frantically trying to place all the plungers back as my friend and I are running away and cackling. Then an employee walks up and starts to help him. Apparently the whole shelf, 3 racks of plungers, was unstable, and as they were putting the last few on, the racks above clattered to the ground. Now there are probably 50 plungers rolling around on the floor. My friend and I are dying while watching from the clothing store. The employee just puts his head down, sighs, and tells my brother he can just leave. We didn't get in trouble or kicked out, but I'm sorry for that poor employee. It was funny as hell though. Story 16. Let's see. I've seen a guy walk in on 10-foot stilts, a guy with his dong out, a lady pulls her pants down to adjust her pants, a guy passed out from huffing an aerosol can, a chick passed out on the ground, low blood sugar, a car caught fire, an employee in his car in a parking lot, old, and lots of fights. I'm sure there's more, but I can't remember. No, I personally didn't see some of these, but I'm friends with employees. There's nothing to do in this town, so when something happens, I hear the stories a few times. Story 17. My story is much milder. Consider it a palate cleanser for the horror stories in this thread. I worked at a Walmart for one summer during college. My job was to recover shopping carts, help customers with big purchases, and keep the parking lot clean. As a result, I had a particular disdain for a group of customers I called oil changers. They would run into the store to buy automotive products, use them on their vehicles in the lot, and leave a mess in the layout. One of my most memorable encounters was with a group of teenagers who installed a trunk-mounted subwoofer box in the lot and left the empty cardboard box for me to clean up. It was a minor annoyance, but when there were garbage cans between each lane in the lot and customers couldn't be bothered to use them, I think my annoyance was justified. Story 18. At the time of this story, I was an overnight manager. While I was making my rounds, an associate informed me that a customer had told her, "Get the hell away from me or I'll kill you," and that he was headed towards the hardware department. She gave me a quick description: a white guy wearing a hoodie and headphones. I radioed the overnight asset protection guy so he could locate him on camera, and I headed out to find him. I saw someone matching his description facing the other way down an aisle in hardware, and I went to confront him. He turned around, and to my horror, he was holding a hatchet. I kept my distance and asked him to leave. It was then that I realized he was talking to himself. His conversation was very conspiratorial in nature, and it scared the crap out of me. I quietly radioed someone to call the cops and let them know about the hatchet. He picked up a few things and headed to the registers while I followed him from 20 feet back. We opened a register just for him, and things went smoothly from there. He left the hatchet at the register, but I continued to follow him from there. As he got to the front door, a line of cops confronted him with assault rifles and shotguns out and ready. He complied, and it ended as well as I could have hoped. Story 19. My mom worked at Walmart for about a year. She actually liked it as she was more active, but she decided to quit after the jewelry department manager had a meltdown and started throwing jewelry at customers. One old lady got pelted in the head with a heavy ring box, and it was over. Turns out the manager was selling the jewelry to friends and family, but would keep the boxes and stuff them with rocks and trash, so inventory would stay the same. She had a meltdown before she was caught. They had to drag her out of the store that day. Story 20. My best friend and roomie worked at Walmart, and technically died there having an aneurysm. The worst story was about a hamburglar, a person or people who would put a package of raw hamburger in their cart and then change their mind and leave the hamburger in some random spot. Sometimes it would be a couple of days before the hamburglar's deed was uncovered. It was so bad that almost every employee started inspecting their area of responsibility. And pretty soon, the hamburglar's foul deeds were being discovered very quickly, because no one wanted to deal with a leaky maggot mess. Then the assistant manager got caught leaving a package of hamburgers in the shoe department. Story 21. My roommate worked at Walmart for years. The worst story she told me was when some lady confused the fitting rooms for restrooms and took a big dump in one of the stalls, right in the floor. At some point during the deed or just after, she realized what she had done and tried to clean it up, but all she could find was a paper towel roll. Just the roll, no paper towels. So she stuck the roll in her pile of mess like a flagpole and went about her day. Story 22. Oh brother, so many things. Let's break this up into customers and managers' actions. Customers. A male made number 2 go where number 1 should go. Females decided that all feminine hygiene products make great wall art. An older lady carried a sword in the store. Office was broken into with a crowbar, and an employee who tried to stop him got struck in the head with it. Forced male employees to climb down an unsecured ladder from the roof onto a thin metal overhang to change the flag. Locked the eye wash station room. Forced employees to unload a pallet-loaded truck in the parking lot with an incline. This led to one employee breaking his arm. If I remember correctly, it took over an hour to go to the ER because the manager refused to call an ambulance or take him. The older female manager mixed bleach and ammonia to clean toilets. Story 23. My 2 favorite, oh man, moments. Code Adam, missing Ked, was wandering the store looking for a little boy, and we saw him flying down the main aisle on a bike. He clipped the edge of an end display, went flying into a shelf, and got banged up. This is the worst one. Again, a kid, maybe 7-ish, was laying on the bottom part of the cart. He was looking up through the cart, and his head was at the front. Mom hit a bump, kid slid forward, his head bent back, and he went under the cart while he was still on it. That one was disturbing, but he didn't have any issues other than screaming for the first minute or two after. Story 24. I've been working at Walmart for 2.5 years and I've seen it all. The worst thing I've seen was a man who was checking out in the self-checkout. All was good until the smell whiffed by. I didn't think much of it and figured the guy had farted. He proceeded to shake his left leg until a large slimy turd came out of his pants. He took his receipt and left. Needless to say, I did not pick that up and called maintenance over. I can only imagine the feeling of a warm turd sliding down my leg. Story 25. I personally didn't see this one, but I heard about it. It was during the holiday season and an older woman went into a dressing room with a bunch of clothing and came out with a lot less. She hobbled over to one of our electric carts and slowly drove out, moaning in sheer agony. Softline employees noticed this and immediately alerted the AP. They stopped her at the door, found a bunch of stuff out of bags in the cart that wasn't paid for, and when they took her into the AP office, they found out that she had a lot more stuff on her person, lodged up her ass. Our AP person, with the help of a couple of cops, had to strip this old woman down in the office and remove said items from her rectum. The woman was arrested, and I don't think I've ever seen our AP woman leave after clocking out so fast that night. Story 26. I was working part-time at Walmart and was having a smoke break. There was a guy sitting on the bench with a paper sack. I thought, oh, he's got a beer in there or something of that nature. Nope. While several of us employees were sitting there, the dude pulled out a white paint can, blew it into the paper sack, and started huffing until his eyes rolled back and he slumped out. Everyone was kind of in shock, but then a few seconds later he pops up, grabs his stuff, and goes on his merry way. Story 27. I'm not an employee, but I'm damn glad sure I wasn't for this one. One fateful afternoon, my bladder decided that it needed relief, so I ducked into the restroom while I was in my local Walmart. The two urinals were out of order, which left the handicapped accessible stall and the regular stall. Someone was in the regular stall, so I opened the door to the handicapped stall and saw what I can only describe as the aftermath of a storm. There was chocolate pudding consistency poop on the floor, the seat of the toilet, the wall behind the toilet, on the toilet paper dispenser, everywhere. It looked like someone had stood with their pants down, bent over, and started spinning while letting forth some sort of scatological lawn irrigation fountain. My bladder would have to wait. As I gently made my way out of the restroom, making a mental note to burn the shoes I was wearing that day, I saw a kindly-looking older man in a yellow vest pushing a cleaning cart towards the entrance of that hellhole of vile human excrement and villainy. I'm not a religious man, but I offered up whatever good vibes I could muster for that man's surely soon-to-be crushed soul that day. Story 28. There wouldn't be a week without someone crapping on the ground somewhere in the store, usually in the clothing section. Story 29. This thread is kind of like Walmart itself. I want to go in and see what's up, but I'm a little scared of what I might find. Story 30. Somebody put bleach, ammonia, and drain cleaner in the fish tanks. Another time, somebody sprayed deer pee all over the toy section. I am really glad I don't work there anymore.